So today I want to build a sequencing setup in the grid that is great for creating textures and Euclidean rhythms, and this will be polyphonic as well. This is the result. You can find these ideas and many more in the PDF I keep on updating with tips from the videos I publish here. It's available on my Patreon page together with the project file from this video. Now, as you can see, we will do this in the node grid. The voice that I'm using here is the phase 4. For now, I will remove the note inputs module. Later on, we will need it again. You will see also why. And also for now, I have the node grid here set to mono. Later on, we will add polyphony. So we will start building this setup with two triggers, modules 1 and 2. Right, we will combine them to create our rhythms. But first of all, I will set them to stop running or mute when stopped, just so we have a bit more control. And we will combine them with the clock quantize module, this one here. This module will make sure that the trigger input will happen only together with the clock. So the clock signal will come from the lower triggers, right? We can also name this clock. And the actual triggers will come from the upper module here. Right now, I would like this also to output triggers instead of gates. So here we can change this. You can see it says now G for gates. If I change this to T, it will output triggers. And now if I connect this to our voice and I play this, right, I can change, for example, the clock to have 16 steps, right? So we have higher resolution. And the triggers, for example, to something like 8. So now we have 8 notes. But if I change this to something like 7, right, we start getting the interesting rhythms, and this is actually what will give us Euclidean rhythms, right? In this case with the length of 16, and within these 16 notes we have 7 hits, and these hits will be distributed as evenly as possible, which is what Euclidean rhythms are. Now what I want now is also to change the pitch of this voice. For this we will use the steps module, right? I will disconnect it from the pre-chord phase and we will drive it with the same rhythm. So for this we need the counter module, right? This one here, let me put this here maybe. Right, this module will convert triggers back into phase. So we will use the same signal from the clock, right? From the clock quantize, maybe you can see this better like this, right? We use the same signal and now this will convert it back into phase, right? That we can then run our steps module. And I would like everything also to stay in sync. So whenever I hit play, if I use the transport playing module and I connect this to the reset of the counter, whenever I hit play, everything will stay in sync. Right, now again, we will use this for pitch. So in this case, we will use the pitch scalar module, right, just so we stay in a certain range. And we will use also the pitch quantize, so we can quantize this to a scale. I will choose the scale that I use all the time, right? And then this will go to our voice, right? So now if I play this, we have also pitch changes. Right, and again with the steps module we can change this, so I can randomize the values. Right, we can even play with the ratio between the counter and the steps module. For example, here we have 8, so let's have just 5 steps on the steps. And now maybe randomize this again. Right, so now some steps will play twice. So this is the basic setup for this one voice, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I would like this to be polyphonic, and there are a few things we have to do for this to work. First of all, I will change the number of voices here on the node grid to, let's say, 6, right? But now if I hit play, right, nothing will happen because the node grid, for the node grid to work when it's polyphonic, we need note events. So what we need is to add notes here. I will add a clip and I will add a long note. Doesn't matter, because we're not using this for pitch, doesn't matter which one you enter. Let's say this one, right? And I will just make sure that it's looping. We have here for now 4 bars. You can try a different length. But now again, if I play this clip, right, still we don't get the result we want. Still nothing really happens. Right, and that's again because we need the note in module. So in the inputs and outputs, we just need the note in to be inside the patch. We don't need to use it. We don't need to do anything with it. But as you see, if I go into the help here, we have effect voice lifetime on, which means when the device is polyphonic, it keeps voices alive while this module is active, which is exactly what we need when we are dealing with polyphony. So now if I hit play, right, we get the same result as before, but again, now we have it polyphonic. So now let's really add another voice. I will just duplicate everything that we have here, right? Maybe I will also color things differently. So this can be red and this can be, let's say, green. Right, on the second voice, we can have a clock of, let's say, 12, right? And only have 5 triggers instead of 7, right? And let's say, for example, that we will have here, let's say 17 steps, right? And randomize this, right? So now we will have 2 voices playing together. Right, and they are playing different rhythms, they are going over each other, stepping on each other's toes even. I can even show you this. We have here on the note output, we have velocity. So if I take this all the way down, we hear now just a second voice. Right, but again, I can have both of them playing together polyphonically. Right, and let's even add another one. Right, so again, I will just duplicate everything. In this case, let's have it yellow, let's say. Right, and change again the clock. So the clock here will have 15 steps with 4 triggers. Let's set the counter to, let's say, 5. Of course, you can experiment with this. The numbers don't really matter in this case. You can experiment with different step lengths and everything. Randomize this, you'll have 15 steps on the sequencer. Right, so now we will have 3 voices playing. Right, again, I can take the velocity down of the first voice and the second one. So now we hear just the third, just this one. Right, let's bring the other ones back. And maybe here on the first voice, we can change the range to be a bit lower. So we have different notes a bit. Right, and we can also pan the individual voices, so we can pan 2 of them, let's say hard left and hard right. Here we have the panning settings, right? So all we need is, for example, the value, right? Set it to be bipolar. We will have 1 voice panned to the left. Duplicate this. This is not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. And another one panned to the right. Right, so if you are with headphones, you can hear this, and actually I can also show you this when I take velocity down. So now we have just a voice on the right, and we have just the voice on the left. Right, and then together we have the 3 voices. Now we can also use expression like timbre, for example, to control things also polyphonically. Right, we have here also timbre control. Right, so if I use, let's say, another sequencer, I will just duplicate and use another sequencer for each of the voices. Right, and let's change the settings a bit for each. So here, for example, maybe I will stop this for a second. So here, for example, we can have, let's say, 7 steps, randomize it a bit. Right here, let's have 10, right, randomize it again. And here, let's have 12. And again, randomize it and then send this to the expression, or to the timbre actually, to the timbre output here. Right, now we can use this together with the expression device, for example, to affect the filter polyphonically, right? So here we have the expressions device, we have here timbre. I will hit play already, I will take this down. Right, and now polyphonically affect the filter. Right, so again, we have polyphony now of 3 voices, 3 different rhythms, 3 different sequences, 3 different modulation sources for the filter. Right, and of course you can add more modulation. We have here also pressure, we have here velocity. Right, you can add and send all sorts of different modulation sources there. Right, but for now I will put this in context. I have here a kick. Right, that I'm also using more or less the same setup. You can see I have 2 sequences, one for velocity, one for decay and distortion. Even though it's not polyphonic, still this setup works quite nicely. I have here some hi-hats. Right, and percussion again with the same setup more or less. In this case, velocity and just decay. Right, and I have here also a bass and a sort of a lead line. Right, so you can hear the texture coming from this setup we built. If I mute this for a second, right, something is missing. So again, you can add more voices, add more modulation, change the rhythms and so on and so forth. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.